Jon, why do you need therapy? You don't need therapy.
I think everybody could use a weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, some kind of check-in.
Really?
How you feeling? What do you feel?
I just feel like I'm talking to a guy who has a very sound grip on life and reality. It doesn't compute to me why you would need to talk to somebody, but maybe you have demons, I don't know.
It's not about demons. It really isn't. It's not that. Going to therapy is not really about sort of wrestling with these, as you say, existential problems. It's more about kind of checking in and seeing where you are and maintaining a presence and a perspective on
So
life.
Does the lady or dude, have they said things to you that you were like, oh, I was not aware? Oh, okay.
For sure. Again, it's a third-party perspective on whether it's relationships, career, drinking, partying, life, whatever. And I had a great session today because it was like I'm in a good place, had a couple things to talk about, talked about them, got some perspective on it, and it's helpful. I think it's helpful.
Yeah.
And anxiety and crippling anxiety, and weed has really changed my life.
I think a lot of the people who are the most anxious have the most privileged lives. I mean, look at your life. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to be you.
I don't know. I think
Doesn't
that's
that,
a very narrow kind of mindset, in the way of trauma. Everyone really has, their trauma. As far as trauma for every human being, I lost my dad when I was 8. I was molested growing up.
Molested?
Yeah.
Lost my mom when I was 10, my dad when I was 20. My growing up was a hodgepodge of parents, lack of parents, family, lack of family, different definitions of family, living by the grace of other people.
I was molested growing up.
Molested?
Yeah, I went through shit. Everybody goes through shit.
Yes, molestation is a serious...
And death. Death in the family is so hard to grow up without a father. Holy shit, I could not even tell you.
When a child is that young, that is, yeah. But they're more than just the regular bullshit. Yes, I'll give you that.
Watch it.
But being with a therapist every day can also, I'll give you that. But can also be a indulgence.
That's where he was going with that? I thought he was gonna go, okay, I can see why you need therapy because you've been molested and your dad died. Yes, okay, I can see why you would be a great candidate for therapy, and therapy might not be bad for everybody.
I know what's going on in the world. I should have the anxiety. I mean, I feel like a lot of therapy is making you dig into things that maybe you wouldn't have dug into on your own or dredge up stuff. Maybe, again, devil's advocate, it's the human mechanism to forget because it's like, yeah, that shit happened and it was bad, but now it's so many years later.
I think we're going to get to the same thing about two things can be true. I think there's a very valuable part of living that is forgetting and letting things go.
So how can you be that fucking concerned about what's going on in the world? I know what's going on in the world. I should have the anxiety. I follow it. You kids don't follow it. You don't know what the fuck's going on in the world. What are you upset about? What is the world problem?
Examining things that you have been through.
Well, can I tell you a short story to my perspective on this?
Yes.
It may not add anything, but it is so true. April 7th of this year, I looked at reading the newspaper and I looked up and I saw the date and I went, because April 7th was the 50th anniversary of the thing that to this day was the most traumatic thing that ever happened to me in my life. My girlfriend of 1 year and 3 months dumped me on April 7th, 1973. And this was so prevalent in my mind, in my life for so long that I used to write a journal, like on April 7th and January 7th, because that was our first date. And then I added the other 2 7ths, so I had 4 times a year, but that was really the provenance of it. And for many years, this was just so, it wasn't after 5 or 6 years, I'm sure it ebbed as something that was emotionally there, but I still was writing the journal on those days, and I would never forget it. And when 50 came along, it's like, oh my God, I wouldn't have even thought of it, except I saw it in the paper.
Yeah.
And just the idea that I could come from this place where this thing was like my 9/11 to where I don't even remember that it's a big anniversary. It just shows that, yeah.
I'll say this about that, because it's actually very funny, first of all.
Pathetic, you mean?
No, I think funny. I think it's funny. I think that is a supremely human thing.
Yeah.
And I think everybody has a version of that, whatever that is. It might not be as bold-faced as a date. When you're young, up until about your mid-20s, your brain paths, your neuropaths and your synapses or whatever are significantly wider. It's the 405.
Right.
And so all the stuff that comes barreling down there hits you like a ton of bricks. Emotions and love and comedy and drama and sadness. All of it is so much more elevated when you're that, because literally it's a physical thing.
I've never heard this aspect of it, which is fascinating.
Well,
so
part
you're
of it
saying
is,
because the ones in the brain are also wider.
yes, and part of it is that your
it
brain's
makes
still
sense.
And even people that can afford it, there's so much stigma around getting help. We really are.
But don't you think some people overdo it with a therapist?
Wow, Bill, you're the best, man. How thoughtful of you. In this girl's trying time, this is a nightmare for her, right?
Yeah, again, if we talk about living in the world that we live in now, I think that having the ability to understand like how trauma affects your life and how you can actually manage it and deal with it and actually get help and come through it. It's not a scarlet letter that you have to bear for your entire life. You can actually go like, yeah, that happened and it sucked and I worked on it and now I'm better. You talk about it in a certain way, and I think you're right. I think your idea of just like, you know what, manage it, and then go on with your day, and find what it is that makes you happy, and pursue that.
I wonder what would happen if you kids had to go through something really traumatic, like what they're going through in Ukraine now.
I'm pretty sure for the past 5 minutes she's just been talking about how much anxiety she
Yes.
has.
What would happen if you actually had to suffer? Well, I don't know. You don't really know my life story. I kind of have gone, oh, nonsense.
And it is what it is. Like, we are, as you say, at the end of the day, the one thing that binds us all is this physiology is the same. We are, for the most part, the same. And I think if we all got back to that, and if we could figure out that, it doesn't matter, reading about this like stuff in the Ukraine and how all of the war is happening, you're just like, guys, at the end of the day, everyone just wants to go home, make sure their kids are safe, eat, and go sleep and go to work.
You're talking about optimism and to singing in the mirror, I believe in you. And
There's no shortness of irony in that song either. Like, it's very funny that he's doing that because he's trying to pump himself up.
which we all are doing every day.
Every day, baby.
You kids, you wake up offended. You should get off Twitter, get off social media, and maybe you wouldn't have this anxiety.
Which is just be present, take it in.
I'm 100% offended. Like when I think about, someone's trauma and the videos that I have seen, that's fucking anxiety. That's why I don't like to joke about it, because
Look at him. He could
someone
care
hears
less.
it and on a public platform is so bad because you're kind of
You
low
can't-
key spreading this oh ha 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 ha, and it's it's not funny when you're like.
I think the thing, once again, what I'm taking away with this is live in the moment that you're in, live in the year that we're in, because it's gonna change.
Well, I think we're born in a state of being uncomfortable.
It's hard to get out that opening.
Life is a constant struggle to retard the progression of being uncomfortable.